Hi guys, ArchieLuxury. Go to f2bbs.com. www.f2bbs.com. The last bastion of free speech on the interweb. That's right, guys. I want you to go to www.f2bbs.com. That's right. I want you to go there. You can, this is a great site to fight against all sorts of nastiness by posting on f2bbs.com, the last bastion of free speech on the interweb. Go there, guys. Hi guys, it's your pontiff, Archibald Chesterfield III. Guys, I've got paid life advice. That's right, I've got a video here, paid life advice. That's right, guys, if you've got a problem, I'm just going to write that down. Paid life advice. New series on the ArchieLuxury channel in 2021. If you've got a problem, send me the details and send me a donation, minimum 50 US, and I will air it on my channel. Obviously, I'll take out your names. And what I will do is, we'll change your names and, well, actually, you just give me a pseudonym or first name. I'll publish the story and viewers can also chip in and put their 2 cents worth of advice. Now, I'm going to be doing this on the ArchieLuxury channel, paid life advice. Let's go into today's first paid life advice. Dear Archie, it's me again, JJ. Thank you for your last watch review. Your advice was very helpful. I sent in the day date to an independent. This is the guy who got his day date. I recommended that he get it looked at. He had a problem with his bracelet, I think. I said, take it to an independent. Don't go to Rolex. They wanted to charge a fortune. This time I have a family problem that I need your help with. I have sent you in $200 since the story is long and complicated. Okay, here we go. I've been having issues with my wife's side of the family, and I'd like to have some advice from you. Some background: I met my wife in college, and she is 9 years older than me, but age doesn't affect us, and our relationship is working very well. Hey, I like the older ladies myself. Very good choice there. This is our 8th year of being in a relationship. When we got married 3 years ago, her parents requested to move in with us because they wanted to retire but couldn't afford it. They had a house, so they sold it, paid the debts out, and then part of the proceeds, $60,000, was given to me and my wife to help on a down payment for us to buy a bigger home. I agreed to have them move in and we will take care of them for life. I am really doing this to make my wife happy, not for the money, knowing this is the worst financial deal I could ever make logically. Since the parents moved in, I have not asked them to contribute anything to the house, and they get to keep 100% of their retirement money, and my wife occasionally gives them an allowance when needed. My wife also has a sister who married as well. The sister's husband never respected me when I was a student and had nothing. My wife said he thinks I am playing around since I am much younger than her. I've been ignoring the sister and her husband. Okay, so that's the wife's sister. Okay, that's okay. Ignoring the sister and her husband and have very little contact with them. After graduation, we both built our careers and were able to make a decent living. On the other hand, the sister and her husband are not doing so well financially, according to my wife. Here is how things turn sour. Occasionally, her parents-in-law will be sleeping over at her sister's place for a week to spend time with them. This is perfectly fine with us. However, the sister's husband approaches us and asks for money to cover the expenses for the sleepover. I refused because I told my wife we are not going to pay your sister to take care of her own parents if they don't want to spend the money. The parents just stay under my roof. I will provide everything needed. Because of this, the brother-in-law and I got into an argument. He claims that I take the $60,000 and I have full responsibility of the parents. I got so pissed and I said to them, I will give back the $60,000 and ask him to take the in-laws. Of course, knowing him, he cannot afford to have them move in. He remained silent. Since then, I know my wife secretly gave some money to keep everyone happy, and I just kept my mouth shut. Recently, the situation has been worsening. I find out that she gave them a fixed amount of $500 monthly because her sister cannot afford the rent. And this has been going on for 8 months. Ooh, $4,000. She said she wanted to help her sister through the hard time. I think this couple should just move out from their 3-bedroom apartment and find a smaller place. What the hell are 2 people living in a 3-bedroom apartment? My wife said the one room is reserved for her parents to sleep over and the other for the dog. I truly think the family is nuts. If they cannot afford the parents to sleep over, just have them visit and come back home. Now, when I complain about it, my wife tells me that they are looking for a place, but in reality, I know this is bullshit. Okay, we've got a bit of a tricky situation here. Very, very tricky indeed. Okay, so that's the story there. Question 1. I don't feel that the sister and her husband have tried hard enough to deserve any help. It's one thing to help the unfortunate. I think they just take advantage of us because we turn out to have extra money, extra spare cash. On the other hand, I don't want to get into a fight with my wife, so when she runs short, I just pay her, but I'm not happy about it as this continues. It's a vicious cycle. What should I do? Okay, and he's got another question. He's got another question which goes deeper. So I got to tell you, this is a very, very tricky problem. It's always a mess. It's always a mess. And I gotta be totally honest with you. What is the things that makes marriages collapse? Money, sex, relatives. So let's have a look. How do we sort this out? Now, I actually went back to JJ and I said, what nationality are they? And I was a bit confused. He said something about $60,000 when they sold their house and paid the debts out, and he mentioned 60, and I was saying, well, did they give you the total proceeds or did they keep some and give you some? I wanted to know the situation. And he said, hi Arch, I am Chinese and they are Korean. He's in America. The parents received a net sum between 100 and 120,000 from the house. So that's they had the house, they sold it, paid some debts out. They had 120 left over. 60,000 of that was given to JJ and his wife to basically get a house together which they could also live in. What a mess, what a mess, what a mess. Hello? Okay, I think we've got a couple issues here. I got to tell you, we've got a number of issues, and I think you've got to get your ducks in a row. So basically, your wife's parents gave you 60,000. They gave you and the wife 60,000 as a down payment to buy a bigger home, which they could stay in. You agreed they could stay there, and they didn't have to pay costs for housing. Okay, very, very good. Okay, what I think you need to do is let's clarify a few issues here. Okay, your wife's sister, they rent a place and they've asked you for money, and your wife has been paying them $500 a month. Okay. These are some very tricky points here. So your first question to me is, I don't feel the sister and okay. Well, look, stop. You don't need to justify nothing, irrespective of whether your wife's sister and her husband are unemployed bums, and whether you're a billionaire. That's irrelevant. The money has no morality. Remember that. You're asking me what should I do? Okay, let me tell you what I would do. Okay, firstly, we've got a couple of issues here. Number one, you need to talk to your wife. Now, what I would do is, if I were you, take her out away from the home and her parents. Take her out and say, honey, I want to have a talk to you. This isn't really working too well. The arrangement with your parents and your sister and her husband, this is not working well. You need to tell her there's a couple key issues. Firstly, you feel these secret payments, this is ridiculous. I think you guys, seriously, you should look at getting a budget. You really need to have a budget where what are you guys doing? You've got to really look at you've got to have a budget. Now, you don't have to have a budget where you follow every cent. You don't have a coffee, you don't do this. I'm looking at more tracking some major expenses. And I've put budgets together. It doesn't mean you have to follow it for every purchase, but it just gives you a rough guide. We've got this much for housing, this much for bills, this much for this much. So if one of them gets out of line, you can see where the money goes. Now, I think first thing is you need to have a talk with her and tell her, if you're making secret payments, this is really not on. We've got to pull together. If we're going to help, we'll help together. If we're not going to help, we're not going to help together. You need to address this issue. The next thing is that you guys really should be putting your finances together. You've really got to pull together. What are you doing with your money? What's she doing with her money? It's I mean, there's so many good financial programs out there. I really like Dave Ramsey. Okay, he's a bit, I admit Dave Ramsey's a little bit cash, but some of the principal things are important. He says have an emergency fund. Then you start the debt snowball. Get rid of all your debts beside your house. So credit card, car loans, rent to buy furniture, stuff like this. Once you've done that, then you have a fully stocked emergency fund, which is normally 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And then you start putting money into retirement. If you have children, or if you're going to have children education expenses, you put money into different things. Now, it sounds to me like you guys aren't on the same plan here. So I honestly think the first issue is you need to have a talk to the wife and say, look, honey, and not aggressively. I would say to her, honey, the big things that cause divorce: money, sex, and parents, relationships. And we need to sort this out. I really want to talk to you about getting this sorted out. And I think if she's earning some money, sure, she can have some of her own money for her own hobbies and things like that. But a big chunk of her money needs to be going into debt repayments. A big chunk of it needs to go into savings. And a big chunk of it needs to be going into joint. If you want to give some to her sister, well, you got to make it very transparent. So the first thing I would do is talk to the wife. And you've got to, if you don't have the wife on board, it's not going to work any further. And I don't mean threatening or nasty or vicious. I say, honey, I'm really worried about this. This can lead to problems. I don't like the fact that you're paying them secretly. I don't like the fact that this is happening. We've got to address this. So you've got to get your wife on board first. Once you guys have agreed, then you need to have a family meeting. Yourself, your wife, your wife's parents. Okay? Forget the sister and her husband, that they sound pretty toxic. You've all got to sit together and say, guys, you've been living with us, I think you said 3 years now. 3 years you got married. We got a few problems. So I would say you've got to have a family meeting. That's basically yourself, your wife, and her parents, okay? And say, look guys, we got some problems here. At that meeting, you need to be prepared to say, guys, if this deal is not working, I will give you your $60,000 back and you can leave. Simple. This is what has to be said. You need to be able to say to them, guys, if you're not happy with this deal, let's give the 60 back and you can leave. And you need to, not aggressive, but you need to say, look, this is not working. You honestly have to take some notes on a bit of paper and get some rules worked out. Say, guys, I just want to reiterate. The $60,000 that came to us, that was used for your housing here. If you choose to go and go on a cruise, well, I'm not paying for the cruise. If you decide to go with the other sister and stay with her husband, well, I'm not responsible for paying them money. Okay, you've got to make this situation very clear. I would also say, you've also got to present a budget. I would do this in advance. I would say, look guys, just so you know that I'm not giving you a bum steer. This is the budget that me and my wife have. So I would have this prepared in advance. I would say, we've got income this. There's nothing to be ashamed of if you're earning big money. This is me and the wife. This is what we're providing for you. You put in 60. A similar unit like this would a granny flat would rent for, say it's $100 a week. That's $5,000 a year. We're providing electricity. That's another $20 a week. I would list out exactly what I'm providing and say, look guys, you're getting a great deal. If you're not happy, I'd gladly give you your 60 and you can leave. You've got to have the wife on board to support you. You can't have her not agreeing. I would show them the budget. And I would say to them, guys, if you're staying with the other sister, you can't expect me to chip in for them. So you've got to have a united front. Now the next thing is, so the way you've said it here, it's a little bit confusing. It is a tricky problem, but I really think you said I don't feel that my sister had tried hard enough. That is irrelevant. It's nothing to do with you. Your success, you could be a billionaire, they could be dirt poor. There's no difference in morality there. I tend to agree with everything you've said there. To have a 3-bedroom apartment, they really need a studio. If they can't afford a 3-bedder, what the hell are they doing having pets? If they can't pay the bills, what the hell are they doing having pets? I gotta tell you, pets is for people who own the house. And I hate pets inside. I really, really dislike pets inside. That's ridiculous, okay? Ridiculous. So you got a room for the... My God, I never heard such stupidity. And then they're going to keep this room for the parent... What? Wait, you never asked them to do this. If they decided to do that, they can't expect you to cough in for their stupid decisions. Are they also going to keep a bedroom for Donald Trump in case he comes by? This is ridiculous. I agree 100% with what you're saying, but to recap, talk to your wife. You've got to be on the same page. You've got to tell her we can't have secrets. We've got to have a budget, and then you need to talk to her parents together, united front, and say this isn't working. You need to be prepared to say, if you're not happy, I will give you your $60,000 and you can leave. You've got to have told the wife what you want to say. She's got to be on your side. If your wife is not backing you, it's over. It's over, Red Rover. Be nice about it, but there's no need to be shy in coming forward here. So that's question one. What should I do? So I've explained it. Sit down with the wife. Tell her this is not working great. You're upset about this situation. Do a budget together. No more secret money. And then you need to have a meeting, you and the wife and her parents. Explain the situation. Show them a budget. And show them, if they're not happy, the situation. Question two. I and my wife both work very hard for our money. Even though this is the case, I generate 2/3 of the income in the house. I always want to treat my wife equally. If I get something for myself, I will get something in equal value for her. However, the fact that she is giving away money to her family just makes me feel less incentivized to do that. I don't want money to affect our relationship. Any suggestion is welcome. I gotta tell you, what you should do is sit down with your wife and say, we can no longer give $500 donations to your sister. Work out a financial plan together. Now, I really like Dave Ramsey. I don't follow exactly what he says. I'm in Australia and the tax laws and things like that are different, but a lot of what he says is true. Number one, a $1,000 emergency fund. Number two, debt snowball. Everything besides your house, you pay off. And I've taken that to mean house and other real estate investments. So if you've got credit cards, you've got student loans, you've got furniture on finance, you've got interest-free things you've bought. You want to pay that stuff off. Pay that stuff off. After you've done that, so all you have left is a mortgage, then what you want to do with your money. So what I'm trying to say is you and your wife should be getting rid of this. You need to have 3 to 6 months, especially in this COVID times, nasty times, 3 to 6 months of expenses up your sleeve. Now, Dave Ramsey says you should have that in a bank account, but I say you could possibly have that in some shares. You could have that in a variety of things. I keep mine in watches because I understand watches, and I need it for my channel. But you get the drift of what I'm saying here. You guys have to work together. So I would say to her, we got to work towards it. Yes, if we both agree to help your sister, we can do that. I would say, let me tell you this. I would say for your wife's sister and her husband, and possibly her parents, Dave Ramsey has these things called financial peace. It's kind of a financial course they teach you. Maybe look at giving that to them and saying, here you go. I know you have some trouble with your finances. Take a look at this. And I basically would say, if your wife's sister and her husband are not prepared to do the financial piece, well, you're not prepared to donate anymore to their poor decisions. You're not going to enable them anymore. You're not going to buy a drunk a drink. You're going to say no. If you're not going to take some serious advice, knuckle down, we're not going to assist you. And that's what I seriously would be looking at doing. I really do think I really do think that that's what needs to be done there. I think I agree with you. If your wife, look at this, she's robbing Peter to pay Paul. So your wife earns money, so she's giving money to her sister, and then she hits you up. Well, you're really giving the money to her sister, and you're not even getting the kudos of doing it. They still think you're a piece of shit. I mean, that's the worst situation there is. At least have the dignity of giving it yourself. You're plugging one bill. You know, it's just ridiculous. So I've got to say, I would seriously say, this is a tricky situation. You've got to sort it out. The best way, do not lose your cool. Do not get angry. Get the wife involved firstly. Talk to her. You've got to get her on side. Secondly, you've got to get your own budget. Show her the goals that you're working towards. Thirdly, you've got to have a meeting with her parents and say, guys, we've got a problem. What do we do? We're not kicking you out. We're just talking to you because we've got a problem here. Then, as far as the sister and her husband goes, I would say we're not going to enable their poor decisions. That's ridiculous to have a 3-bedroom. See, in this society, you can buy a Rolls Royce, you can buy a Mercedes Benz. But if you don't have the money, hey, if you don't have the money, you're not going to be able to afford the insurance, you're not going to be able to afford the servicing costs. That's how it goes in free enterprise economies. Their decisions to have a 3-bedder when they can't, I mean, poor people should not have pets. Poor people should not have pets. Poor people, you've got to live within your means. Now, I would seriously say, give them a gift like, hey, we will pay for you to go to Financial Peace University, learn this stuff so that you are in a good position. Because look, ideally, if they were in a strong position, you were in a strong position, wouldn't that be fantastic? And let's face it, now, I got to tell you something, JJ. The fact that her parents, her and her sister, aren't very good at finances, of course, they've learnt it from their parents. The parents are short in retirement. That's the ultimate sin. Is it any wonder the 2 daughters aren't very good? They've mirrored the behavior patterns from the parents. Now, you've come along and they're trying to make you out to be the enemy. Now, the truth is, their own poor performance, and it can be circumstances. I know they came from a different country, yada, 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 yada. But the reality is, there's some very core bad financial decision choices that have led to this. So I gotta tell you honestly, maybe send this video link to them. Say, hey, I got a third party guy to talk about our situation. Send it. Boom. They can blame me. Say, oh, he's a bit over the top. But he's right. And I gotta tell you, man, JJ, you gotta nip this in the bud. You don't nip this in the bud. JJ, you don't nip this in the bud. What happens is, man, this is where you let it simmer and fester and it gets worse. The wife gets angry. The parents, they all hate you. You're the biggest bastard in the world and you're paying for everything. You got to sort this out. It can only lead to bad things. And I got to tell you, you maybe got to say to the parents, hey, if you decide to go on a cruise, we're not paying for the cruise. You've got accommodation in the granny flat. We're not paying for you to go on a cruise. We're not paying for you to stay with the other sister who hits us up for moolah. Maybe the parents need to say, if they're going to stay with the sister, they should cough in some money her way, because this situation here is pretty damn toxic. It's pretty damn toxic. And I got to tell you, JJ, if it doesn't work out, this is what leads to divorce. Money, sex, siblings and parents. Very, very poisonous. All we need is religion to be thrown in there, and a bit of politics, and we're doomed. So, I gotta say, man, yeah, I gotta say now. So that's my advice. As a follow-up, at the end, some wristwatch check and update. Quick wristwatch check. I'm wearing my Rolex Submariner date 126610LN, the sub date. My shoulder's getting better, but it's still sore. Here we go. I added the Batman 116710 BLNR. Use, taking your advice. Well, it's very hard, impossible to get that. Before year end, to reward myself after a tough year, I wish you a happy and healthy new year. Thank you in advance for all your advice. JJ, winners wear Rolex. Winners do things. Rolex winners do things that losers aren't prepared to do. This is a tough conversation to have with your wife. It's not easy. You got to do it, man. It's not going to solve itself. This is a tough conversation to have as a family meeting together. After the family meeting together, maybe you need to have a third meeting with yourself, your wife, her parents, and the sister and her husband. Work this out, because let me tell you, it ain't going to solve itself. Worst case scenario, give them the $60,000 back and they can go and find other accommodation. Now, what you don't want to happen is they take the $60,000, they go to these other sister and her husband, the money gets squandered, and then they want to come back to you. Hey, it doesn't work like that, Charlie. It don't work like that. If they take the money, don't come back. And that's what I gotta tell you. Gotta emphasize that. So, guys, Rolex men, you wear a Rolex, you got a Batman. Rolex men do what losers aren't prepared to do. You're prepared to go in there and bat. Wear the Batman, go in there and be nice, polite. You'll get this thing sorted out. You let it fester and stew, this can only lead to a very nasty end. Guys, this is the first episode of Paid Life Advice. Tell me what you think, guys. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. Don't forget, guys, I can't survive on Google Ads. I need these paid reviews, paid content to survive. If you need life advice, PayPal me $50 US, ArchieLuxury72@gmail.com, and I will give you the best advice I can muster. See you later. Rolex! Hi guys, ArchieLuxury, and who do I recommend in America? In America, who do I recommend for quality pre-owned wristwatches? David SW, David SW, David SW. Go to davidsw.com. He is the best, the greatest pre-owned dealer in all of the United States of America. David SW, David SW, David SW.
Hey guys, ArchieLuxury. Who do I recommend for watches in Brisbane and Sydney? Vintage Watch Co. That's correct. Vintage Watch Co. in Brisbane Arcade in Brisbane and the Strand Arcade in Sydney. Vintage Watch Co. Brisbane and Sydney. Ronnie, I've known him since the late 90s. Ronnie is a top bloke. Luke is a great guy. Vintage Watch Co. That is who I recommend in Australia. Check out Vintage Watch Co. and the guys' amazing range of watches. They also do service and repairs. Vintage Watch Co. That is where the Pontiff goes. You know, some of my Patek's came from Vintage Watch Co. That's right, guys. Vintage Watch Co.